Hello. So today I'm gonna have a look at the Panzer III Ausf, which I believe to be the worst tank in the game, the most underpowered tank in the game, and one of the most unenjoyable tanks to play. The Panzer III Ausf, it's a German tier 5 premium tank. I will go right off and just show how shitty it is by comparing it to the Panzer V4, which I'm sure it's the best tier 5 medium tank. It's not readily available, but it's still a tank in the game that some people have. So I believe every tank in the game of the same class and same tier should have the same ability to impact the outcome of the battle. That's not the case with World of Tanks. World of Tanks has been unbalanced since almost forever, and over time it has just gotten worse. I don't know if it's due to ignorance or just incompetence, but anyway. The Panzer V4 weighs 41 tons, which at tier 5 makes a huge difference, and with pretty good mobility, the Panzer III Ausf only gets 13 horsepower while the Panzer V4 gets 17, which is similar to a regular Panzer IV. And with 41 tons, it's gonna hit hard, and at tier 5 you're gonna meet some tier 4s which weight very little. And even other tier 5s, well, generally speaking, pretty much everything it meets other than heavy tanks, you can just ram it and immediately you take a huge chunk of its cell points if you're gonna be engaging at short range. But this is only one part of what makes the Panzer V4 so good. One thing that doesn't make any sense, and there's no consistency, shows there's no consistency, is the fact that a Panzer III Ausf gets 600 L points, and this is a good thing. It's actually the only good thing about the Panzer III Ausf. But L points just means you are a damaged pinata. That's it. So, how can a tank which weighs 23 tons, the Panzer III Ausf, have 600 L points, while a tank like the Panzer V4, which is a Pander chassis with a Panzer IV turret, get only 520? When it weighs 41 tons. So we have a tank that weighs 41 tons and a tank that weighs 23. And the lighter tank, the smaller tank, gets more L points than the bigger tank. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway. So you get worse top speed, you get worst reverse speed, which is extremely important. You actually get really shitty reverse speed, only 12. Worse power to weight ratio. The armor is worse. The internal module damage is way worse, or in other words, it's really good on the Panzer V4. It's more like that. V range is worse. Damage per minute is worse. Penetration, because this is the L43, the Panzer V4 gets the L48. So you have worse aiming time, worse dispersion, and then here. These two values, the 0.35 and 0.35, it's what makes the Panzer III Ausf absolutely garbage. Absolutely unenjoyable to play. The Panzer V4 gets exceptionally good. 0.12, 0.15, 0.08. It's really good. Really good for a tier 5 medium tank. And that's why I think it is the best tier 5 medium tank. Because you're going to be able to put shots on target really easily, and then you have the armor for it. To just carry games very easily. If we look at the armor, as a tier 5, you won't find other tier 5 medium tanks with this level of protection. You get the same shitty turret as the Panzer IV, sure. That's true. And I'm not saying the Panzer IV is H, the Panzer IV H, regular Panzer IV, it's bad. It's pretty good. It's actually one of my favorite tier 5 tanks. And I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun with the derp. But the Panzer V4, you have a very well armored front, which is bigger than the turret, making it where most shells are gonna land, and even on the lower plate, it's still pretty good. These 110 effective, somewhat. It's gonna make it bounce a lot of shots, especially from lower tiers, such as tier 4. So Panzer 3K, right? Armor. as a tier 4, as a tier 5, it's just garbage. It's 50 millimeters effective overall. The gun shield is not going to make any difference. At least the couple is 95. It's a funny thing. It's a big couple, but it has a lot of armor. It's at tier 5 this level armor. It's not going to make any difference, really. And when you look at the Panzer III as a tier 4, then you look at the armor. This is the wrong gun. With a 50, it gets the better gun shield. You see that even though it's one tier lower, it's much better protected, and it makes a lot of difference because it's one tier lower. It's gonna work much better. It's gonna be fighting at tanks that this armor actually makes a difference. The turret, it's really good with 80 millimeters, 70, and overall here it's also about 50, such as on the Panzer IIIK. So at least the Panzer IIIK could get the treatment of having this plate, right? At least that, but it doesn't. Another thing that it's missing from the Panzer IIIK, it's the Churzen, the spaced armor that can be seen on the Panzer IV. You get the spaced armor on the chassis and the spaced armor on the turret. Now this is not going to make much difference. It's only 5 millimeters, but it does help. Certainly helps. It doesn't hurt for sure. For example, protecting your sides from high explosive shells, so you don't get as easily penetrated. And it's missing from the Panzer IIIK. So if it had the extra plate here, 20 millimeters, would increase it to 70, so that would be a tiny improvement. And then the spaced armor, and then you lower it 1 tier also. And then you would get a somewhat decent Panzer IIIK, and you would need to also buff the gun handling. If I compare it to the Panzer IV Ausf, which is the closest thing I can find to the Panzer III LSK in terms of gameplay, the Panzer IV Ausf is total paper, to the point that the Panzer III LSK, armor level, it's better. So if you give it a tiny bit better armor to the Panzer III LSK, you improve its gun handling, because gun handling, it's so horrible. I'm comparing it to a tank that is 1 tier lower with the same gun, same penetration, same damage per minute, just tiny bit better aiming time. And the mobility. The mobility here is very important, because the Panzer III LSK, it's kind of slow. You don't need to mess with the mobility. You can leave the mobility as it is. If you lower it to 1 tier, and you give it slightly better armor overall. You give it the Churzen, you give it the extra frontal plate, maybe some tracks on the like you give it the extra 20 millimeter plate, just as on the regular Panzer III. Some tracks maybe here, adding some 15 millimeters or so. Yeah, 15. And the Churzen, and at tier 4, the armor would kind of work, and I think it would be kind of nice. You give it even more view range, like 360 at tier 4, to make up for the pretty bad mobility, and that's it. Of course, you adjust the L points, and you would get you improve the gun handling to maybe 0.26, or maybe just the same 0.28. I don't know, but this gun handling, this is the thing that really needs to be improved. Just to finalize and to understand how bad the Panzer III LSK is, you compare it to a Russian tank. It's not surprising. You compare it to a tier 4 Russian tank. So this is a tier 5 German tank being compared to a tier 4 Russian premium tank. What you get is this. The mobility is worse, the armor is worse, according here, but it's actually similar. The armor protection is very similar. It's about 50 millimeters effective overall. You have the same view range. You get a bit better top speed, but the reverse speed is much worse. The T28E gets 20, which is ridiculously good, and it's very important to have this good. This 20 kilometers per hour reverse speed makes a big difference, because it allows you to avoid getting shot. That's what helps you a lot, avoiding getting shot in some situations. The T-28 gets more power to weight ratio, so better mobility, but it doesn't. It doesn't because the terrain resistance is really bad. So it's the T-28E F30. It's actually a tank that could very well be a tier 5 if it wasn't so artificially nerfed as it is. It's on the gun that you notice the biggest difference. The T-28E with F30 gets an 85. An 85 that deals as an alpha damage of 160. And 160, it's a lot and makes a big difference at tier 4. I mean, this 110, it's already pretty good as an alpha damage for tier 4. 160, well, it's a huge advantage. You get more penetration. The APCR, it's 161. The APCR on this one is 139. So, sure, the aiming time and the accuracy is not so good, but overall, it's a really good tank, the T-28E with the F30. And then, the ultimate comparison is the fact that it's a gun handling. The Panzer III has 0.35 with a smaller gun, and the T-28, one tier lower, with a bigger gun, better gun, gets only 0.25. So, I was saying that you should lower it to the same level as on the Panzer 4 Ausf. Just make it 0.20 or 0.25, at least to be the same as on the T-28E with F30. Well, at least it gets better gun pressure, right? Anyway. It's a German tank, so it needs to be bad, according to Wargaming. That's a good example of the respect they have for tanks and the consideration they have for tanks and for the players. And that's it.